welcome everyone. We'd like to just turn your attention to the screen. What you are seeing is the infomercial, I'm calling it, but a commercial that the students at East High School saw during last year's course selection process, and at Amy Tordone. And I'm not sure if Chris Kearney was involved in it or not, but they created this commercial for their new AP Human Geography course. And we had heard from the Student Life Committee when we asked them about promoting new courses, what was the best way? And the students at East mentioned this video, so take a look. Yeah, we should. Maybe they did. I think they did. So we raised the volume a little bit there, please. I mean, some folks mentioned they had no idea what this course was about. There you go. It's about world culture and sociology. Love our people wherever they may be, and the internet of society. Was that awesome? Make sure that Amy knows we showed her video. And I want to thank Donna Davey, too, in the tech department, who went into the archives, the video archives, to find that for us. Thank you.
And that should be, hopefully that's an inspiration for many of you to be encouraging your teachers to post videos like that to involve the students and promote their classes. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and get started with our last meeting of 2014. And so we're going to start with the very first item. It deals with our new courses that are going to be included in our program of study for, and this is just for East and West. So I'm going to turn the agenda over to Dr. McNeil.
Thank you, Mrs. Hurd-Simmons. The board does need to approve new courses, and new courses are defined as those courses that would need a change in curriculum. So we are requesting approval of the courses that you see on the list, numbers 1 through 7. We have brought these to Board Curriculum Council with descriptions and from the curriculum leaders. So is there any question that anyone, board members, Curriculum Council has about any of these courses?
All right, and it's my understanding the curriculum will be written later this year.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Hearing, are there any questions from anyone? Oh, yes, Mrs. Snell.
I'm just curious, I don't recall the math classes. What does level 2 mean?
That is replacing the current course.
Not geometry. Dr. Manganello, would you be kind enough?
The algebra 2.
Sure. The Algebra 2 Level 2 is replacing intermediate algebra, which is not an Algebra 2 course, but Level 2 courses are designed for students essentially who are struggling readers and need different supports than Level 1 class. So the content should be the same, but organized differently for students who struggle with those courses. So geometry, we do not have a geometry Level 2 right now. Right now we have honors geometry and essentially Level 1 geometry. So we're creating a Level 2 geometry. These are administrative approval only, so limited numbers of students at East and West just for kids who really need that kind of support.
Thank you.
Right, board, can we move this forward? Thank you. The next item is request approval of the 2015-16 program of study at East and West High School. Wait, okay, I'm sorry, old agenda. All right. We are now going to be looking at program of study for the STEM Academy, and this addresses the 3 new IT courses that we've discussed in the past.
Mr. Campbell?
I think last month I was here, we talked about those same 3 courses that are in there now. The IT will basically go into our corporate mathematical innovation pathway, and what it'll look at is basically forming scrum teams, which is what the IP path does, and it'll start to incorporate all of our other pathways as well. And it'll be good from computer programming to logistics to project management and so forth. We have a couple of our business partners who are lined up in those other areas to assist us. So I'll put that in for beginning next year. I'll also allow seniors to jump into that pathway if they would choose. So most of you are juniors, but we'll also run a semester course for the seniors. And we'll just need to write that curriculum over this year over the course of the winter and the summer.
I do have a question. Since this is a new course for juniors and seniors, like what course might they give up to take this course?
It would just be another pathway that they would take. So instead of taking design engineering, they may choose the IT pathway, or instead of a medical pathway or a biological pathway, they would choose this. So it's just another option. We don't have anything in the IT field at STEM Academy, and it's something that's a definite need in the business world, so that's what we're creating that. We're trying to, as we go through this every couple of years, we'll be reinventing the pathways as times change and try to stay current. So there'll be other ones that will start to move in and out and develop.
Are you anticipating like one class per subject title?
No, if you look at the first course in that will run the first semester of junior year. The next course, they'll go right into that, which is the second course of junior year, in the spring of junior year. And then the third course would run senior year. There are 3 courses that go right in a row for a year and a half. So I wouldn't run all 3 at the same time. They're subsequent courses, 1, 2, 3.
Are there any questions from the board or BCC? Hearing none, can we move this forward, board? All right, thank you.
If I could just make a comment, we will be bringing the programs of study for East High School and West High School to Board Curriculum Council in January. It was not possible for us to have a camera-ready draft copy for Curriculum Council to preview in time for the December 2nd meeting. So I apologize in advance for that Curriculum Council, but there is a lot of detail work, including blended courses and changes to other than course descriptions that needed to be made, and the deadline for us was November 21st. So it was too difficult to get the draft version of that program of study completed in time for this meeting. Thank you.
Okay, our next item is we're requesting approval of the 2015-16 program of study for the Downingtown STEM Academy. If you could show that up on me. We talked about this at our meeting, and I believe per school code, we do not have to approve like the official program of study, but it is our practice here at Downingtown to present this to the board and to all of you with a recommendation to the board to approve the entire program of study. So on this document, is there anything in particular that is different from last year? Art's saying no. Yes, this program of study. There's nothing really different.
No, it's just the addition of those courses.
The addition of the courses,
You
and
could
that's all.
turn to page 63 and 64. You'll see where Mr. Campbell has made the changes. So the courses, Mr. Campbell, that are, have strike-through,
We're replacing that, yeah.
replacing those with the
They
information
have,
technology.
the math pathways have not run in the 4 years, so we're gonna pull those off the books and put the new set on there. Like I said, we'll start doing that as we go through the upcoming years, depending on the needs of the
Can
local.
you scroll down further, please? And then keep scrolling. And there you see the new courses that are being proposed.
Oh, Linda, that second one should say spring semester, my apologies.
Okay.
I'll fix that.
And then also in the footer, we want to say 15, 16.
Yeah.
If you have the Word doc, we can make the changes, or
Okay.
it's easier.
All right, are there any questions to this program of study? All right, hearing none, can we move this forward? Okay, thank you. And then our last item on the agenda is field trips. Ms. Saxa?
Thank you, Mrs. Hurd-Simmons. We have, I believe, 3 trips on our application form today. One is to the Exton Square Mall for students in the autistic support classrooms at West. The students actually cooperatively plan and organize the trip, and then they actually get to take the trip based on their standards and their individual goals. The second trip is a trip, you saw our AP Human Geography advertisement. This is the same class. Part of the requirements for them is to conduct a field study. So this is an application to do that field study at the King of Prussia Mall. And then our final trip is one that we have approved in the past, but because it's international, it has to be approved each year. It's to Quebec, Canada, and that is for 2016, as you'll notice. So it's a year in advance here, and students will not be missing any school for that trip.
Okay, if you could also clarify, we talked about the King of Prussia trip a little bit. And that was, I believe the students come to school and they leave from the school at 9:10. And then they leave the mall at 1:15 and then they're back in school for
Yes.
dismissal, correct?
Exactly.
All right, are there any questions on the field trips? Okay, can we move this forward? All right, thank you for everyone's efficiency. Thank you. We may get out early, who knows? Just saying, maybe that'll be a little holiday present for everybody. But at this point, is there any public input on the board items? All right, thank you, and I will turn the program information meeting over to Dr. McNeil.
Thank you, Mrs. Hurd-Simmons. So our monthly curriculum leader showcase is our business and computer science education department this month. And our curriculum leader, Suzanne Hanbicki, will share some highlights of what's happening in this department. Suzanne?
Thank you. We have a presentation that I've heard that technology might not be cooperating that great auditorily, let's say. Well, can we go back? Oh yes, that is quite low. The public speaking students did the voiceover for the presentation, so unfortunately it doesn't sound as if you can hear them.
Hang on, colleagues coming to the rescue.
Is that any better? always a workaround.
The whole department would like everyone in Science to celebrate Computer Science Education Week, December 8th through the 14th. We invite all teachers in the district to take part in the Hour of Coding initiative. They can use code.org with unplugged or coding activities or Khan Academy coding activities. The first sixth grade center teachers Mrs. Basso and Mrs. Alvarez recently integrated technology with art and EL intentions. Students created artwork in partnership with the West Gallery and wrote essays about the art, which were then narrated into the Show Me app and generated into QR codes. During the gallery exhibition, parents and students can not only see the artwork, but hear what the artists have to say about it by scanning the QR code. Students in 7th and 8th grade learned the 21st century technology skills. Here they are designing web pages and developing spreadsheet skills. At Lionville, students will again participate in the Hour of Code activities. 7th and 8th graders at Lionville and Downingtown Middle Schools have advanced Word elements, PowerPoint, database management, basic HTML to make their own web pages. Publishers for designing brochures and other publications, and many apps to assist with all of their core and encore class projects.
There are 5 courses in the business and computer science department at STEM that are taught by Mrs. Tomlinson and a total of 13 courses at the comprehensive high schools. Mrs. Scott, Collins, Hunt, and Mallard add hands-on real-world projects at East, and Mrs. Wilson, Mrs. Hambicki, and Mr. Smith do the same at West.
The 5 courses at STEM are global marketing, computer programming, Java, IB business and management, both standard and high level, and STEM Inc.
The 13 courses at East West are AP Computer Science and Accounting, Advanced Digital Information Technology, Business Law, which is running as a blended IB Academy course at West, Computer Programming, Entrepreneurship, Finance, Introduction to Business, Marketing, Personal Finance/Careers, Public Speaking and Business Etiquette, Sport and Entertainment Management, and Web Page Design. Here are some photos of classroom activities for many of our courses. Here's a spirit full of common class at East Durham Company and computer science students during Technic Day. All 3 high schools participate in Technic Day, and each is assigned to a different company in the area to learn how they use technology to run their businesses or as their core competency. West students experience the zombie apocalypse at Sunguard. Sunguard specializes in disaster pre-preparedness and business technology recovery.
Sitting in on trails and getting a tour of the facilities. Computer programming students learn hardware and circuits using Arduino microcontrollers. Entrepreneurship and staffing classes are a business at each school, and students learn the 4 P's of marketing. Here, marketing students design a display in the
the public speaking students a real-world application of the skills. And there was one in there that I think he has a good career in radio coming up. He has a beautiful voice. And before it, or does anyone have any questions on any of the courses? One thing that I did want to call attention, I gave everyone a magnet, the very first slide on the hour of code. We are celebrating next week computer science education, and it would be wonderful if you guys could hop on code.org. There are tutorials, video tutorials. The students can go in and learn a little bit about coding. At every level, there are instructions available, and there are even unplugged activities available that students don't even need computers to learn the basics of computer science. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. We love, oh, can you put that right back up there for 1 second? We love how you manipulated that logo that Dr. Musselman created. I want to know how she did that.
I was excited about that one. That was pretty cool.
That's really
We're going
great.
to copyright that, and you'll have to
Pay royalties.
pay royalties.
Mrs. Blust, I think, and was sharing with the elementary grade level leaders about the hour of code and how that might be happening at some of the elementary grade levels. Could you just share that very quickly with us, Audrey, please?
Certainly. What's happening is, because of Pat Malone's program after school, the programming clubs that are going on, we've been already looking into this, and having known that the hour of code was coming up, that's what we're doing this afternoon, actually, and sending that out to other fifth grade teachers to see if they wanted to do it.
Outstanding. So those after-school programs are generating, and you're doing that, right, Suzanne? Are you doing the after-school program of one of them with Mrs. McGlone?
Not this year, I did that last year.
Last year. So that's pretty exciting, and I know that some of the other elementary grade level leaders will be doing this as well. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Hambicki. Next, our 2015-16 draft district calendar. Ms. Saxa and Dr. Mussolini. We could just put that up in very large size so that everyone can see. You probably have it pulled up on your computer so that you can see it a little better.
So here's how we're going to present this. If you like it, I did this. If you don't, it's Jennifer's work. So Jennifer, you're on.
Thank you, Dr. Mussolini.
Anytime, Jennifer.
Perfect, okay. As you can see, we have two things side by side here, the calendar, and then also some changes, just to explain what's different from last year to this year. And then we also had a meeting just Wednesday, just before our break, with our DAEA leaders, and they made some further suggestions. So I'm going to go through a few of those as well so we can discuss them. Just the basics of changes, and then we'll take a look at the calendar really big so people can see it, just like Dr. McNeil suggested there. New teacher orientation. This school year, it was one day, the Friday before the teachers who have already worked here return. And we found that we were missing that extra day. It meant that new teachers did not get to spend as much time with mentors or in their school buildings versus being here. And so we are adding that back in so that it will be 2 days before the teachers come in. It will be the Thursday and Friday before that. Rosh Hashanah holiday, we're going to actually come back to this one in the suggestions. But in the previous several years, it's been on a Saturday or on a weekend. And so we didn't have to do anything for taking school off as a holiday. This year, in 2015-16, I should say, it's on a Monday. So we have made a suggestion that we do schools and offices closed on that Monday for the holiday. But keep that in mind. I'm just going to fly past it because we're going to come back to that later. The September early dismissal this year, you may recall, was held on 9/24 and connected it to the full day PD day, the 25th. And we had some input from our professional development committee, who were also expressing some concerns from parents that those Wednesdays of early dismissals, they would really benefit from being they know not to make a doctor's appointment, or they can make a doctor's appointment every Wednesday, second Wednesday after. So the suggestion was to keep it consistent. So that's the goal with these, but you can see there are still some exceptions. So keep that in mind as we go through the calendar. Just the October early dismissal, we have the same thing. This year we tried it on a Friday so that it would be connected with the Columbus Day full day PD. And that was fairly successful, but we did have concerns from teachers that means they end up staying later on a Friday than they would normally have to stay on a Friday because they always stay later on professional development day. And then we also had the consistency issue, which we were talking about with the September early dismissal. So the suggestion is to just move it to the second Wednesday and keep it there, as we sort of are trying for consistency. The next section is parent conferences. For the last 2 years, we've had grades 7 to 12 have PD, not conferences, in the afternoon of the early dismissal or in the afternoon of election day. What we're suggesting is that 7th and 8th grade actually spend that time at conferences, and only 9 through 12 will have PD in that afternoon. And the reason for that is that 7th and 8th grade teachers had so many requests for conferences even this year that they could not accommodate them without that. We actually gave them an exception. The core teachers, we said, you will not have to go to PD, instead schedule your conferences. So we'd like to make that official. The January early dismissal, again, we're going to try and keep consistent, changing it from a Friday that we're doing this year onto the second Wednesday, just for that consistency's sake. Spring break was changed just because of when Easter is. And the weather emergency makeup days, the changes that we just did is, you'll notice we moved a spring break day before that May day, just because we wanted to, if we have to make days up, we wanted them to be days before the testing. So we sort of changed the order there. Yeah, they're a little funky, right? Yeah.
4 or 5?
Yes, exactly. Okay, so if we scroll down, Tony, will you do the next page of that document, that Word document?
Jen, is this posted anywhere for people to be able to see it?
Yes, it should be in our, you mean for people not on BCC?
No, just people on BCC, because it's included when I get on the link for the board, but the one that Tony sent out was just the.
Tony, can you speak to that, Tony? Is it posted with, on the Moodle site with the rest of the BCC items?
I went to
Yes,
the
it's on the
site.
Moodle site.
It's where?
On the Moodle
It's
site?
on Moodle, and it's in the portal, on the portal. But just the agenda is an email.
I have it, it's on the Moodle site. You go.
It's on the agenda, but I always have to go to college, she showed me where it is.
Yeah, it's under BCC 1415 is last on the line.
The teachers have it. I have it because I got it off the board site,
But you wanted to make sure everyone here could see
saying they
it.
don't have it.
Are we finding it now on Moodle under BCC? I think I just heard is the final line with today's date. Is there anyone else who needs assistance finding a calendar on the Moodle site before we move forward? Well, I think Dr. McNeil's going to show us on the display computer how to find it.
The calendar changes, what the website already said.
So the calendar changes is not, so we need to post that. Okay.
Just the calendar.
Just the calendar itself is there, but not these documents. Okay.
And the board's going to vote on that, I think, in January.
Yes, we were hoping that we would bring it here, there would be some discussion. Oh, as an aside, Dr. Mussolini had suggested, and Craig Prusian agreed to, that DAEA would publicize the calendar to their membership and all the teachers, and then get some input on, you know, anything that they felt like needed to be addressed or suggestions that people may have. You know, knowing that we may not be able to accommodate everything, but at least to hear from everyone. So we're hoping between our discussion today and whatever feedback we get from that, that we'll be able to approve this in January.
All right, you're on Moodle, K-12 curriculum.
So this is a great time to maybe look for those. I know this year we had to change a half day for the kindergarten.
14, 15, you're under Topic 1, Board Curriculum Council. 14, 15, Board Curriculum Council. Then in the list, you see 14, 12, 2. You have to click over here where the arrow is. It expands, and then you see the agenda combined, and you click on the PDF. And then over here, you'll see tabs. There we go.
And we can keep that up there because that's nice and big so people can see it right now as we go through the suggestions. So you recall that I mentioned the whole Rosh Hashanah, and that was it's September 7th. If you see up there, it's it's the second red block in September. September 7th is Labor Day. September 14th is Rosh Hashanah. So our original idea was to have off for Rosh Hashanah and have have a full PD day on Yom Kippur, which is the 23rd. That's traditionally what we've done, is a full PD day that late, because we're usually waiting for the data to come in from Study Island, from CBT, from AimsWeb, all of that, so we can use that full day PD day for data days for our teachers to go through the information they have. But there is some consideration perhaps we should be making too, which of the holidays is the actual day off, because Yom Kippur is actually the highest of the holy days, and Rosh Hashanah is not. So here, in our original incantation here, we were giving off for the less holy of the days, and so teachers were going to probably miss on the 23rd anyway. So we had some discussion with, do we have enough data from the spring to be making decisions by the 14th instead of waiting until the 23rd? And so a suggestion was, let's switch those. Have off on the 23rd and have a full PD day on September 14th. Thoughts or comments for or against that are welcome.
I respect, you ought to be honoring the holidays that is meaningful to our staff members.
Any comment from principals about having the day-to-day earlier versus later?
We won't have the data.
You will not have the Study Island data by the 14th. Is that problematic in a way that you think it's substantial and we should keep it as it is?
Wait, we talked about, no, just stay with me. Why won't we have the Study Island data back?
No, we will have, the Study Island data will have, but that baseline data, as your principal, elementary principals, correct me if I'm wrong, that baseline data wasn't really something, it was baseline data.
Correct.
So there wasn't a whole lot, like now, having given the second benchmark, we see growth, we see where our weaknesses are. At the beginning of the year, it's the baseline. In all reality, we could assume everything's going to be a weak point at that time. So there's not a whole lot of meat to bite into.
Right, so really, aren't the principals using PSSA
Yes,
data?
that would be this year's data, would be their PSSA data.
So we can do that earlier. There's no reason that we couldn't do that earlier.
Any other thoughts or comments, teachers?
I mean, as long as we have that piece in place, I'd rather take off the highest holiday and have our teachers certainly come in on the 14th. It's a give or take. And by the way, for everybody in the room, I've looked back 10 or 15 years. We have never taken off both holidays. Never. We've always been in school one when they were both, we always had a professional development day on one, And if the other one wasn't on a weekend, we were in school. So just understand that this is the way it's always. This is the first year we'd be taking off for kids, both. And everybody, first time ever for one of the two. So we think it's right, but I would rather take off the highest holiday, if we could. You guys all right with that? And we'll make that change, Chad.
Okay. The next suggestion that we had was, if you look at the K-6 evening conferences, they were originally scheduled for Wednesday, November 4th, which is, a Wednesday is usually our PD after school. You stay 65 minutes after the school day, or student day. Usually that's supposed to be for a meeting of some kind. But I know that Craig and Larry have spoken about allowing, or memorializing the fact that we're allowing to have it on this one day for people to spend that time in conferences rather than at a meeting. What that does, though, is it keeps teachers, again, late. So elementary teachers wouldn't be finishing conferences until 4:35, and then they're starting evening conferences maybe at 6, maybe at 7. It's not giving them a whole heck of a lot of time in between to be able to get dinner or do whatever they need to do. So the suggestion was to move that to Thursday. Instead, move the K-6 evening conferences to Thursday. Then they just you stay till 4:35, and then you go home and you leave at your regular teacher time on Thursday, and you come back in the evening. You have a larger block of time in between the two. So thoughts about that? Oh, and just to remember also, 9 to 12 already has conferences on that Thursday. So it will be combining, so K-6 and 9 to 12 on that Thursday.
Last year, 2 years ago, it used to be that way, and then elementary teachers asked for it to get changed because we were spreading out our conferences over 3 days, a full day, an afternoon, and then an evening. And we asked that it would be condensed to have the evening conferences on the same day as the afternoon conferences. We just wanted to throw that back out there.
Was there any, it's very difficult as a teacher to transition from teaching to conferencing. Okay. It's just really hard. And so then to have it in the evening as well, just kind of, is there any thought to having, 2 full day of conferences? Because we don't have enough conference time. Our parents are angry that they can't get into past conference. And so then what they do, if they can't sign up for their regular conference time, then they take an entire period for a conference.
K-6 has the full day, the election day, and then the early dismissal plus the evening. So you're right, that probably equals maybe 2 days, but not 2 school days, 2 full school days.
Isn't the evening part of the collective bargaining agreement?
Yes.
One evening. So you're set for an evening, and I know Craig and I talked about this, to add another full PD day would mean that the curriculum, this group would have to give up a day. So I just don't know. We hear what you're saying, but we don't know if we can do it. And still we'd have to give up a PD day. You have to find it somewhere.
But who gets PD? Just 9 through 12 in the afternoon?
No, but if you want to add a whole day somewhere, it's got to come from somewhere that exists right now. So something's going to have to go, and it's got to be an existing PD day.
I'll speak as a slightly minority, but kindergarten has always done 2 full days in the evening, and that's very hard to do the all day and then to go to the evening to do.
Yeah, with the evening in the CBA, we don't know how else to do it. How else would you do it? Because now you're governed by the CBA, so that's out the table.
But no, I'm saying,
you're saying keep it on Wednesday.
no, to move, I'm one of the few elementary that says move it to the Thursday. To have the evening separate from the full day.
That's the only thing you
Kindergarten
can
has
do.
double
Because they have a
day.
conference.
Double.
Have the evening separate. So you're conferencing 3 separate days.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter to me. It's up to you. Tell us what you want.
So I don't know if any other elementary people want to weigh in, since we have 2 different sets of opinions. Principals, I don't know if you have your folks. Okay, Mrs. Filiaggi, and who else had their hand up? Just Mrs. Filiaggi, thank you.
I'm just trying to think, because I agree with what Linda said exactly. We were changing modes twice, I think, going from teaching to conferences. Would it make it easier if we flip-flop the dates? Where you would have your evening conference day before the full conference day. That way you could just be conferencing. I don't know if I'm making this up.
Yeah, grades 7 and 8 have their conferences scheduled for that Monday. So you would have Monday evening conferences, Tuesday all-day conferences,
Yes.
Wednesday early dismissal day conferences.
Well, no, I don't want to make it 3 days. I was trying to, Tuesday, is that right? Tuesday?
Tuesday half.
That would be the full day.
Yeah,
conference
Tuesday's the
plus
full day
Tuesday's a full day, that's election.
Plus it's election day.
Tuesday has to be your full day.
Yeah, because it's election day.
Yeah, no way around that. It's election day.
And if you live out of the district, you can't vote.
Absentee vote.
Right.
In the night, you mean, if you stayed at night?
Right.
Right, yeah, that's why we just do it during the day.
Well, maybe this is one of the ones, I know we were going to send something out to everybody, so maybe this is one of the things we could ask specifically, you know, what, yay or nay, which do you prefer, and then sort of try and make a recommendation based on that.
It seems like the options are keep it the way it is or go to 3 days. Seems like that's your option, the way I can hear it.
We don't, so don't forget to return that survey, or however that comes to you, okay? Julie, yeah.
Throwing something out there, because I know that we have to stay later. Is there any way on election day, we mean that the day we stay later and the normal?
Well, that's the voting
Fine
issue.
with that?
No, they were saying that you can't vote if they move outside.
But the staying later would only take you to 4:35 or 3:45. So you could still
Yeah,
get home.
That's what the polls are.
And then Wednesday would be the leave regular time, you can still have evening conferences.
I don't know, we made that the day we stay later, and the other day we get home at normal. We can still do the 2 hour. When we go home at normal time, so we can go later, like such a short time in between.
Well, it's an option to put down. To us, it doesn't matter. It's just that that's all you have to play with. But yeah, that's an option too.
Okay, so we'll put that out there. Thanks for thinking of that. That's why we have lots of brains in the room. It's a good thing. And yes, please put your proofreading eyes on this calendar as well when you get a copy of it in front of you. We do want to try and correct any errors. Speaking of one, we saw something to remove. On this current calendar, we have listed for January 6th through the 20th and the little narrative in the middle. We mentioned that that's Keystone Winter Wave 2. And it turns out we don't ever use Keystone Winter Wave 2, so we're just going to remove that. It's no need to confuse people. Oh wait, Mike is telling me that's not true.
We use it for biology and for biology.
Maybe last year, this year, we didn't.
No, we only use December for
Okay, so even if we may have done it in the past, okay, so if we're not going to, we're going to always opt to take December, then we'll just remove this one so we don't confuse the community or families about whether or not that will be taken. Okay, the next to last, is that good? Next to last one, is about the elementary ends of marking periods. So there are 180 school days, and typically with the trimesters, that means, you divide them into 60 days each trimester. However, when you plot them on the calendar, that actually makes them happen after the work and collaboration days, or 2 of the work and collaboration days, which sort of defeats the purpose of the work and collaboration day for elementary folks, because they're supposed to be able to work on grades and they can't if the marking period is not closed. So the proposal is to change the end of marking period for the first trimester to be 55 days long. Move it to 11/24, as you can see, that's the Tuesday before the work and collaboration day. then have the next trimester be 60 days, which would end at March 3rd, which is one day before the work and collaboration day, and then have the final one be 65 days. And there is no work and collaboration day. The end of the marking period is the last day of school anyway. Any thoughts about that, Julie?
That would actually work for encores, regrade second trimester and third. In the third trimester, we never have enough grades, so that actually could help us. The first go doesn't make a difference for us, but the last one could help.
Any other comments? Any comments from principals, elementary principals? Anything that sound okay?
Could you say that again?
Sure. We're talking about moving the first trimester to be 55 days,
Right.
so that the end of the marking period is the day before work and collaboration day. Then the second trimester to be 60 days.
Right, the contract says it needs to be no more than 10 days prior to the end of it.
No more than 10 days prior.
Not after.
So this would make it 1 day prior.
It's all before. Both work and collaboration.
Before they would have been after. Keeping it the old way, it would have been after the work and collaboration day. We're trying to fix that.
I mean, we could just set the standard, Craig. I think we're just saying that's probably what we're going to do next year, to keep your work and collaboration day before the end of the trimester.
That's what the schedule says. That's
Right.
what the contract
So-
says. It has to be.
Well, that's.
Oh, the work and collaboration day has to be before the end of the trimester.
Yes.
Oh, I was reading it.
So in other words, Jen, what you just described is what we're going to do.
No,
it's not the change I described.
No, doesn't it say on either side of?
No, 10 days prior to the end of the trimester. No more than 10 days prior.
No more than.
No more than, so
But
it
it has to be
can't be
before
a
the
month.
end.
That doesn't mean it can't be after.
Yes, it
So we
says.
could just keep it the way we have it stated here. So it's 60 days, 60 days,
But
60
that's a
days.
problem. How do the teachers do their grades? How do they close the marking period? If it's not over, right?
Well, they're doing the grades right now, they're struggling, well, there's a lot of issues, but they're struggling right now.
So you close your grades out,
Yeah.
then you do your report cards.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Correct.
So that's what we're saying. The marking period ends on the 24th. You do your grades on the 25th, work collaboration day.
Correct.
Before, it was, you do your grades on November 25th, and your marks close December 2nd. That doesn't make sense. How do I do my report cards until I've closed out the marking period?
Because the mark period closes a couple days early, we wrap up a couple days early. Just like at the end of the year, we don't teach right up to June 6th. We're done doing grades at Memorial. We're done collecting work on Memorial. I'm done collecting work right up to June 6th.
Right,
The whole point was that so teachers could collaborate before the report cards were due.
yes.
And so before the end of the marking period is when you need that day.
And that's what Jen described. Didn't you just describe, Jen, all those days being before the end of the marking period?
We did, but what we're saying is that, what Craig is saying is the contract said it will be after the end of the marking period. The work and collaboration day will be after the
You
end.
said before. You said before, Jen. You said before the end of the marking period. Everything that you described is in line with what Craig said. You said the first one's 56 days,
Right.
and the work and collaboration day is before the end of the marking period, which it will be. And the
No.
next marking period.
No, I was saying that it would end November 24th, work and collaboration day is the 25th. That's what I was suggesting there.
Well, then you just,
So we
you
just-
have to close the marking period on the 20.
6th,
Sixth.
but yeah. So I can just keep it the same as we have it in here,
There you go.
and no need to change this. And teachers will have their work and collaboration day 5 days ahead of the end of the marking period. I understand, but that's what's in the
He's saying
CBA.
That's what it's
That's what's
been
in
But
since
that's not how it's been.
Yes, it is.
No, this year, the marking period is November 20th. That was when grades closed, November 20th. And then we had our work day on the 20th.
Today, this year.
Yes, yes. Correct.
So what's wrong with that?
So we've been wrong all along.
We did exactly what you said we should do this year.
And
years past, every year I close the grades before work collaboration day. This year, Jen did it differently because she counted 60 days.
So we want to keep it the way we did it this year, or we want to go back to the old? Why do we want to go back to the old?
Because teachers have to close out their grades before they can do their report cards.
Right.
And they do their report cards on work collaboration day. So they have to say, okay, no more tests, everything's done on this day. in
Well, I
order
thought
to-
this year was better.
We did share.
You're saying this year worked,
Because we did it this way this year.
so we're going to keep doing it this way?
That's what I'm suggesting.
But that's not what this calendar, this new calendar says.
So there you go. So, Jen, do you want to go back to the way it was, or you want to leave it the way it is?
Oh,
In
it's
this
not up to
calendar.
us.
Okay, Jen.
I'll just mark down what everybody says. I mean, I think we need to adhere to the contract. But I don't know how to work around what I'm hearing all of these teachers say, which is they need to close the marking period before they have time to do their grades and their report cards. So I don't know how to reconcile those two things. Norma Jean? Oh, sorry, yes, Noreen, and then Norma Jean?
I was just going to ask, if I understand correctly, just from what I saw, my teachers were still grading papers. If the marking period ends the day before your work collaboration, right there, if you give a test on the last day of the marking period, do you have time to grade it and then get everything in? I'm just talking with my teachers, I know that they needed a few extra days to get that done. How that translates into the contract and all the other things, I just want to make sure, I think that's what I'm hearing Bobby say, am I right?
Craig, I think what we're hearing is the contract is not being sensitive to what the elementary school teachers are experiencing, and the work and collaboration day was put in there for the elementary teachers. Is that? Yes.
Well, and
So there you go. So we can either follow the contract and not do what the day was meant for, or we can do it the way it was this year because that's in the best interest of the elementary school. So, is that correct?
Well, could it be possible that the reason there's confusion here is because secondary is on quarters?
Exactly. You're exactly right, Colleen. But therein lies the dilemma. So.
That's irrelevant.
But I'm saying, so the work and collaboration day does come after the grades close for secondary.
Right, but the work and collaboration day was originally put in, this particular one, was because of the elementary grading, because they went to the longer report
I
cards.
understand, but secondary gets the same work and collaboration days, correct?
Correct.
So for them, it does come after.
But it's well after, it's
It's mid-March. I know.
Yeah.
But doesn't that follow the CBA for secondary?
Well, it's whatever you know.
Because we have different
Right.
trimesters versus quarters.
Colleen, you're absolutely right. I'm asking, what are we doing? Are we going to follow the contract, in which case it does not help the elementary teachers? Are we going to do what it was meant, was to help the elementary teachers? It's not, for parents and everybody else, it doesn't matter. So, it's feast or famine. I don't know what to tell you.
I'm not sure that there's even a question. We have to follow the contract.
Okay, well then, there you go, Jen, whatever.
You can't do a memo of understanding of.
The idea was that before the end of the marking period, teachers needed to collaborate, to get together and talk about what Bob's grades were going to be. And that's what that day is for. It's not to do the grades. It's to get together with teachers at the elementary level to do the ESAR.
We don't need to collaborate though, because we don't
But
have
wait,
teams.
before you say you don't need to collaborate.
That way, I mean, the way that middle school and high school collaborates with their team because they all have different students.
I think this is a discussion that doesn't need to occur in front of the board and administration. We need to follow the contract.
We need to work, we need the W part.
It's a work collaboration day. And the contract calls for it to come 10 days prior to the end of the school year, or prior to the end of the trimester.
So maybe what we can do is, I know we're going to revisit all of this. It sounds like we need to just solidify that, and then we'll bring it back in January with everything else, as decisions.
Yeah, we'll we agree with you, Craig. And the only group that could say, look, we're going to ignore it or do a memo would be you and your team. So we'll let that up, and otherwise we can work through it. It's not a big deal. Nothing's changing as far as the calendar.
And the last one, if everybody still has the energy for it, we have, so if we go back to the month of September. And remember, we just talked about switching Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Oh wait, go back to, oh there we go, okay. All right, so now we will have September 14th as the full day PD day. So look at that 2 weeks. We have off on Monday for Labor Day, Monday the 7th, in school the 8th, early dismissal the 9th in order to be consistent with the second Wednesdays. Then the next week we have a full PD day on the Monday. And then later in the month we have a day off, right? Okay, so I'm hearing the reactions that I thought I would hear. So we have a couple of options here. We leave it as it is option 1. We do not worry about consistency with the second Wednesday on that month, and we move the early dismissal to at least be connected to one of those PD days or days off or something like that. So we make it the 22nd is an early dismissal, and then everybody's off the 23rd. Or we make it the 15th is an early dismissal, and the 14th was a full day PD, and the 15th is an early dismissal. Which doesn't really help because then it doesn't help the community that much because it's still off and then here for half a day. So.
If it helps anybody, including all of us, every school district in the county has the same problem because of the way Jewish holidays fall. So everybody's got this first week is Labor Day, and the next 2 weeks are Jewish holidays. So I don't know what we can do about it.
So I guess the question is, do we want to move the Wednesday to the 22nd? Do you have other suggestions for that Wednesday? By Wednesday, I mean.
But then you lose the consistency.
You do.
Because I think what you're hearing is parental child care.
Yes.
So people can then say, on the second Wednesday, you'll be going to X place. If we keep changing it, we run into the same problem. Go ahead, Suzanne, I'm sorry.
Can the professional development half day be the third Wednesday? It seems like if it was the third Wednesday, there wouldn't be as many weeks where there's a Monday and a full day of school and then a half day.
Yes, the answer to your question is yes, we can move it. Let's see, third Wednesday. We would still have the same issue the third week in September as we have.
September is
Right.
a bad month.
Right.
But you
And then
can't,
October,
you can't
right.
change the Jewish
Right, you can't
holiday.
change the
So
holiday,
that,
yeah.
I'm not talking, I leave September out. If you look at the other months,
October, we would just be then having 2 weeks with an interruption versus 1 week, but maybe that's fine.
It's
And
just-
then
it
Wednesday is conferences, so we may not change the November, we probably keep the November.
well, that's usually there. You know, it's very choppy.
It
As a
is.
parent, I think it's terrible.
It's
I think
choppy.
It's very terrible for kids to get consistency, but we don't have a lot of choices. It's the way it happens every year.
I don't think you have to worry about consistency. September is shining
Right.
It's all over the place. So if you want to start
But
consistency,
the only
start
month
in
where there's
October.
mostly, where kids are mostly in school is April,
I
which
know.
is almost the end of the year. And then we're testing with that month.
Well, October is a pretty good month. I mean, it's not that bad, Suzanne. What does January look like? I mean, that might be a pretty good month too if you flip up more. Just the one. Well, it's a Friday, and then you have the Wednesday, and then of course there's Martin Luther King. I mean, it's not terrible, and if you're going to blow a week, you may as well. Well, any one in September, you're blowing all 3 weeks. Whatever you guys want. It's not going to.
Okay, are we ready to put the calendar to rest and for input from the masses? I guess, Jen, you'll be sending the survey or?
No, actually, Craig is.
Craig's sending the survey? Okay.
Do it some way.
Okay, do we have So we'll bring the calendar back for approval then, Dr. Mussolini?
Yeah,
in
January approval and then board approval.
We're going to discuss it at the board meeting tomorrow.
Just discuss it tomorrow night, January approval, right?
Thank you for your indulgence.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Saxon. We're going to take things out of order here on the program information agenda, begging the indulgence of Curriculum Council. We'd like to move to the Downingtown Cyber Academy report. Mrs. Christy Burke. Christy, wherever you're comfortable.
Hello. So, in the spring, I took over the Downingtown Cyber Academy, which is the Brandywine Virtual Academy program that we run in conjunction with the CCIU. So I just wanted to give you a little update on how that's going. So right now, we have 12 students that are enrolled in BBA. 2 of those are special education placements. And we have 1 middle school student, and the rest are high school students. And what I think is really interesting is that out of all of the students, only 2 of them are full-time in BBA. So all the other students are taking at least some of the classes at the high schools. So the middle school student is one of the full-time students, but everybody else is coming into the building at some point, which I thought was interesting. All right, so a couple things, some changes that the Brandywine Virtual Academy has made. They used to use the 21st century courses, and they dropped them, which caused a little bit of a concern because all of those courses were NCAA approved. So BBA right now is in the process of trying to get all their current courses NCAA approved, but they're not right now. The other thing that I find a little disturbing is that students are selecting from a number of courses, and I don't know if that's really in the best interest of our students. For example, if they go to BVA, they can select courses from Fuel Ed, OdysseyWare, Florida Virtual, BVA's own courses, which are done in Moodle, and Connections courses. So I think that's really confusing because these courses are different platforms, they're different layouts, different styles, completely different programs. And so they may be taking an algebra course in Fuel Ed, and they may be taking their English course in OdysseyWare, and it's really not consistent. So that's one of the things that concerns me a little bit about BVA right now.
Can I ask you a question?
Mm-hmm.
Have you looked at all of these online courses from a content and a rigor standpoint, and do you have opinions on the courses? Okay, so that's why you're bringing this to our attention, that you're concerned with some of these.
And as a matter of fact, there are quite a few of the parents who've done this before that flat out refuse to take some of the vendors.
So they're allowed to choose from all of those different options because BVA lets them choose that. And since we've contracted with BVA, they have that option. We can't stop them.
And this is a big change in BVA.
Yeah.
So that's where I think we're headed here.
Yeah.
So this is a new change.
Yes.
Somewhat, yeah.
Somewhat, because a lot of the courses that students were taking in the past were 21st century courses.
Right.
So one of the things, and I'm not going to take up time now to do this, but one of the things I'm doing right now is I am researching other programs outside of the IU, talking to some other school districts that are going with other vendors, and also sending out some courses to the curriculum leaders to ask them to vet them for content. Because I can tell you what they're like from a technology standpoint, whether or not I think they're good technically, but whether or not it's a good teacher of algebra, Mike is going to do a better job that night. So
These are not the classes we're using for the IB.
no, these are completely sized.
So Christy, this is for students that want to do cyber school. It was our way of letting them get a Downingtown diploma. So if that's the case, then we want it to be up to our standards.
Oh, yeah.
So if it means going with another vendor.
Right, absolutely. A couple other changes. There used to be progress and attendance reports that BVA would send to the district on a weekly basis. I don't know why they decided to stop doing that and they asked us as a district to go online and get this information, which doesn't bother me except that the online reports are not accurate. And I was at the BVA district meeting 2 weeks ago, and they said they know they're not accurate and they're working on fixing it. The problem is, I'm trying to give this information to the parents, and it's inaccurate. So now what I have is I have a BVA liaison that every week has to put together a report from all the, because they're coming from different vendors. So she has to go out and get all of the grades from all the different vendors and figure out how exactly the students are doing. I find it very confusing, both for me, for the students, and for their parents. So that's another concern. One of the things I do like is they've instituted a synchronous study program. And we have 5 students that are currently recommended for that. There's a pacing guide. All the courses are self-paced, but there is a pacing guide. If students are falling below the recommended pace by quite a bit, they are recommended for this program, and it requires them to log in at a particular time, and they are monitored. And if they don't log in, it's reported as a school absence. So I'm getting some pushback from the parents about this for obvious reasons, but what I try to explain to them is, you know, cyber, with the freedom and the flexibility of the cyber program is the understanding that you are actually going to be staying on pace. So we're working through that right now. So some of the changes that I have made here is when parents call me and they say they want to take a cyber course, if they're coming from a cyber charter school, I tell them, why don't you explore all of our blended options first? And this is just anecdotal, but I had a student come from Upper Darby a couple weeks ago. He's at Downtown East, and his mom called me up before he even registered in our district and said he's in the cyber program there, he wants to be in our cyber program. And I said, well, we've got these great blended courses, why don't you talk to the counselor first? And great news, the student signed up for all blended courses and not any of our BBA courses, which is really great, I think. So I think it's working. Another change that I made was I have one counselor at each school that is responsible for the BBA students. So I like that a lot because it streamlined everything. I don't have to be talking to multiple counselors. They all know what they're doing. And then Carol Warren helped me by moving all of the students that are in BBA to that counselor's caseload so that he or she doesn't have to try to coordinate courses with other counselors, especially since they are taking some classes in the building. Another change I made is I sent updates, I just did one this morning, to parents to let them know this is your student's grade, this is where they are on pace, this is how many minutes they've spent in the class, and here's their grade adjusted for pacing, which has been a huge motivator for parents to say, oh, he has a 98, but he's only completed half of the work, and therefore he really only has about a 50. And finally, I'm coordinating with the home and school visitor for those students in the SSP for truancy reasons, because they're technically absent if they're not in that program. So questions on? I'm going to update you on the blended program in a minute, but questions on just on the cyber program.
Mrs. Crane.
Do we still have a lot of downtown students enrolled in other cyber charters?
Yes.
And are you doing anything to try to pull them in to this?
Yes.
Do you rough idea how many?
140.
And could you also tell me why did they drop 80% courses?
They didn't tell us.
So what I understand, Colleen, is the IU creates a Frankenstein story. The IU created the 21st century charter school. And when you charter, like if we allow a charter, it's a whole other board. So even though the IU created it, they had to relinquish control of it to a whole other group of people. Over the years, from when John, what was his name? The IU Linda, John? No. The former IU executive, Bailey. When he created it, maybe 10 years ago, to last year, the board actually broke totally away from the IU. And they now have, where we used to have our admin office, is the 21st Century Charter School, all by itself, a money-making, profitable organization for those people.
But it's not still affiliated with the IU?
No. And the IU will not affiliate with them, so all this mess came about. And I think, Christy, I don't know if you're going to add this, but I thought we were looking for an alternative for this. Is that right? Yeah. So we're not happy with this, and that's why we want to try to gear up. Craig and I talked about this a week or two ago about cyber courses. We're not quite there next year, but the following year, once we start getting our teachers online, I can envision in Downingtown teachers teaching full cyber schedules, not even blended, but cyber. And that's gonna be the key kicker that gets this away. But I still think we need a stopgap in between that point to get these kids back, because the charter and the cyber charter schools are horrendous academically.
I was going to say, I mean, since the IU doesn't have any ties anymore, their scores have dropped. They were the only cyber school that was meeting standards, and they aren't anymore.
Right. And every cyber charter in the state is doing terrible, below 50%, and the state average is 70. So they're horrendous, and we still have 100 and some kids, help me understand, going to those programs, but whatever.
All right, so now I'm going to give you an update on our Downingtown Ivy Academy, which is the blended program. So right now, we have 29 teachers in cohort 1. There are 22 blended classes that are running right now. There are 5 at West and 17 at East. And I am really happy to report that we have over 450 students that are taking at least one blended class. And there are quite a few students who are taking more than one blended class. So I think for the pilot program in its first year, I think that's fantastic. I have 2 on-site coordinators, Michelle Nass and Daryl McCauley, and so it's their job when I'm not in the building, it's their job to help the teachers and the students with any sort of issues that they may have in terms of their classes.
Could you briefly describe what a blended class looks like?
Sure. Blended classes, it's a little bit different depending on the class, but they meet 2 or 3 times a cycle, and the rest of the time they're online. The students are online.
And the cycle would be 6 days?
6-day cycle. Yep. I know there's been a lot of conversation about one-to-one and BYOD, so I just thought that I would bring this to your attention. I did a survey of the blended students, and we have about 29% of the students that do not have a device that they can bring to school. And then to make up the almost remaining half of the students that are bringing a device, it's a smartphone. So I think also this is a little lopsided because I think there's a difference between East and West. I think those numbers are bigger if you just look at West, for example. So one of the concerns from some of the blended teachers is that not enough students are bringing in a device to school.
How many?
29%. Oh, the
How
number?
many kids is that? So you have to say the 450?
To about 60-something, yeah. And
so
that's only,
so when
that's
they-
out of the ones that
they
answered the
borrow
survey.
a device from the school when they're.
Well, there are, for example, downtown West, there are 18 MacBooks that are available in the library for students to borrow, and all 18 are out. So we could probably have a lot more than that available, and these all be out.
Is that, are you looking at what we can do with that? Don't we have other devices in the district?
Yeah, we are
being
looking.
used?
Yeah.
And we're about to have more, for more benefits graduates?
So these numbers are even more exciting to me. We have 45 teachers right now that are signed up for cohort 2. So that is in addition to the 29 teachers that are already in cohort 1. So that's not total, that's in addition to. So we have 22 blended classes running right now. Next year, we're going to offer 43 classes at Downingtown West, blended, and 63 blended classes at East, which I just think is really amazing. Couple changes that we're going to make to the program. As I mentioned, some of the classes are meeting 2 times face-to-face, and I think almost all of the classes at West are meeting 3 times face-to-face, and the teachers all agree that the 3 times a week works much better than the 2 times a week, only because with vacations and in-service days and holidays, there could be very long stretches of time where they don't see the students, and they think that if it's more along the lines of 50%, that'll work better. Also, I talked to some of the counselors, and they wanted to have a list. They asked me to do a list of some characteristics of some successful blended students, and so we've been working on that. So we can share that with the students and the teachers and the parents at course selection time. All right, so hopefully you can see this. These are the course offerings at Downingtown East. The dark bar, it's in a brown color, those are the courses that were offered in 2014-15, and then the ones in green are offered for next year. So I think this is great. There are courses, this is really amazing. There are courses available in every subject area at Downingtown East, which I just think is really cool. And I'm really excited that, in particular, next year at East, we have courses in business, which we did not have this year, health and wellness, and in math. So I think that's really exciting. And a lot of science and English classes, which is great. At Downingtown West, also really good numbers. With the exception of art, again, almost every subject area is represented in terms of course offerings. And this year, again, health and wellness, we have some course offerings. We had no social studies last year, and then all of a sudden we have a lot. And then world languages, again, we didn't have last year, and we have more. So I'm really, really happy about all the courses that we can offer the students at both East and West next year.
And the course offerings per building are driven by
Teachers that volunteer.
Available, right?
Mhm. Yep.
But a lot better at West this year.
It's coming
For
in.
next
Lot
year.
better. Well, yeah, next year.
And I'm really excited that we're going to try a pilot at the STEM Academy. So there are 3 teachers there that have volunteered to do a blended class. We're going to have a civics class that's blended and a chemistry class that's blended.
Is that the ID for it?
No, not the IB.
Nobody can see the ID.
Good to see you.
Don't forget. I had some questions from the board about the rigor of the blended class, and I just want you to look very quickly at how many AP courses and how many honors courses we are offering blended. I think that is really fantastic.
So I have a question.
Mhm.
So it'll probably take a full year to see the test scores and all of that to see how well they did with the blended course.
Right, although I do have some information from teachers coming in about their grades from first quarter already.
They have common assessments, Mrs. Ritz.
Okay.
That was gonna be my question. They're taking the same test that the
Right,
state
okay, so that's
classes
next.
did.
Okay, good.
Thanks. If not, I don't understand.
That's my, thank
All right, so I was asked 2 questions. One was, what are the concerns from the teachers and what is going well? So I'll start with the concerns. One of the concerns from the teachers that have been mentioned is that some of the students took the class thinking it would be less work. They hear 2 or 3 times a cycle and don't hear and you'll be working online the rest of the time. They missed that part. I can guarantee you, Alana Shipe and I went into every single English class at Downtown East last year, and we told them, right, Alana? We told them that it was not going to be less work. So they chose not to hear that message. What is really cool, though, is I have an email from Jackie Rhodes, who teaches an English class at Downtown East. She's actually teaching 2 sections of blended. And she said, the kids who are struggling are finally figuring out that this course is not just free time. And they have finally adjusted. They're finding ways to manage their time more than when they started this year. The quality of work has been exceptional. They all have to post to the discussions, which gives every student a voice, when many of them would not raise a hand or share in a traditional class. I now have the time to add enrichment to their work, which many of them are doing. So I think that that's fantastic, but it does take a little bit of time. I already mentioned the BYOD being an issue, that some students don't have a device and too many students are trying to work on their phones.
So how are we letting them sign up for a class if they don't have a device to use in that class?
Well, I think it's one of those things we need to look at.
Sure, but we don't, isn't it why is it a requirement of the class that you have access to a device?
It is.
It is.
Of course,
It
Cal.
is, their access
It is.
to the
So
phone.
they're signing up for it without a device, and we find that out after the fact.
Well, this is what I believe, having talked to this is students that graduated a couple of years ago, but I surveyed a lot of my daughter's friends and what have you. And these computers are heavy, and they don't, with all their books, and they just don't want to take them to school because they're heavy.
That's not my point.
But they have the devices, but they're choosing not to take the devices, the nice computers.
Well, and I
Is that your point?
They have I think the thing is, they have a computer to use at home, and they're expecting to be able to use a school computer when they're.
Because they don't want, part of it.
Because they don't want to
take
run,
it.
or
But that isn't what they're signing up for. So, we can either,
It's kind of like them thinking it's easier work. I don't think they've thought it through. Now that the first year is in, we just.
well, there's a lot to this. I mean, first of all, we offered it to them, and they took it. And that's kind of what we've been struggling with all along. If we offer them systems, they're going to take the systems because they're going to say, I'm going to leave my system for whatever your reason. I'm just going to leave mine at home. I'll use yours. So, I mean, there's just, we've got to let this thing nurture, and we've got some extra systems.
And hopefully next year we'll have some more from STEM,
Right.
so
And
that we'll
that's
have
where
more
we're getting it
available in school.
But maybe not enough.
But at some point when we go, once we develop this plan, as we're developing it, if we absolutely, which I'd like to see, full BYOD, 9 through 12, then those devices would be, I don't know, really a luxury that we would have, and they would be old, and they'd have to get their own. And it can't be a phone. Even an iPad would work, which would be a lot lighter, Barb, or Surface.
The expectation is a lot more students will have that.
Right. Well, as we move and pull things away, the key is to work with our staff and what this looks like, because I don't have a great handle on it.
And we do have devices available, correct, Mrs. Burke,
Yeah.
for students?
Right.
You're saying students are using their phones, but we do have a device available in the library. Aren't there extra devices that the students could, laptops, when I say a device, the student could check out the laptop? No?
They don't check, no, not at East.
Ah, okay. So was that your point, Mrs.
Well, my
Simonelli?
concern is that how do we have a student in a BYO, in a blended class that doesn't have a device.
They do have-
Or someone, right, so they had, saying that they're not bringing the device to school. And then now you're saying that once they're at school, they're not accessing even a school device.
No, here's what's going on. They're doing their work at home on their computer, and they're getting all their work done. When they come to school, they're saying, this is my device, so I'll do it here. And it's like we're saying, it's just hard, but you could do this here. Maybe you work here if you want. The world isn't ending, but it's not perfect, it's not good. But to answer your question, they know when they sign up, they have to have a device, and they do.
The statement there is that more than half of my students don't have a device.
That's kind of not, that's not perfectly stated. They don't have a laptop, but they have, all the kids have a device. Can't sign up for the course without it. Am I right, Christy? I mean, with the device, what you're saying, device, they don't have a laptop or a, yeah.
I mean, Alana, do you want to say? Or Suzanne?
I have a section of 1001s, and unfortunately, it's that they don't actually have a device other than a phone. So they're working at home on a phone, and they're working in school on a phone. If they go to the library, they can use a laptop in the library, but they're not allowed to leave the library with the laptop. The technology is working on, at least about a month ago, they're working on refurbishing some of the STEM laptops so that East can also have that accessibility. But out of the 20 kids, there are 7 who have their own and bring their own devices every time we meet face to face, and the other ones just use their phones.
So 11, you're saying, we're talking about 11 kids, and
That's one class.
that's one class, right?
Well, can we, before we try and, we can kick this idea around for another hour, because the reality is, we need to be more specific next year when students sign up, number one, and number two, maybe have a, take the STEM so that at least there were more laptops in the library for students to be able to borrow and use during the day while they're in school. Outside of that,
Or are calling all STEM laptops, they redeployed? Where are they?
They are, 60 of them are in process of being rebuilt for West, and we're at West for CFF cart replacement. There are another 60 that are in process or already there for 2 CFF laptop cart replacement. The remainder have been split between East and West and are either there in sign-out mode already or in process.
and how many do we expect to have at the end of this year with the next class?
I'd have to look, but at least 200.
So that we should be able to have 100 more to deploy in each high school for next year.
Well, we also have to take in consideration of the CFF laptop and the bigger model changes that we're working with Dr. Mussolino.
It's part of this bigger picture stuff. We got to get a handle on it.
What about, have we considered the Chromebooks and purchasing some of those type things so students would have those things and stuff?
It's all part of that big picture, so we're not.
So, that's a concern from teachers. Have you surveyed teachers who are not in blended? And the reason I ask this is I've been visiting East where we have our art class. And the kids who are supposed to be in a blended course, they're hanging out in the art rooms instead of being in the library or else. I don't know where they're supposed to be. And if they're doing their work at home, they don't need to do it at school. So where are they going?
Well, what's the problem in our class?
They're not supposed to be. Well, it's not their class.
Well, who's letting them in?
That was what I'm curious. Are they supposed to be somewhere? Or
No.
is there rules on where they?
Well, they should
No.
be in the library and cafeteria.
Library, cafeteria, but if somebody's letting them in art, they're going to go in art.
It's incumbent upon the teacher
Right.
to say you can't hang out here.
But there's a place for them to go. Absolutely.
That's what I wanted to make sure there is a place for them.
Yes, there is.
Right, art, I can talk to you outside of this, art is a specific situation, but I have no problem if the kids want to come in and do their artwork and they're not disturbing the other students.
As long as the teacher allows, you know.
Right.
But we've redone the cafeterias in the library, so they do have a place to go.
Absolutely.
All right, so if I could just go to the positive things. Somebody asked about grades, And so these are just some comments from teachers, that first quarter grades were good. Some teachers saying they're even a little higher than what they see in a traditional class. I had more than one teacher say that the highest scores overall were in their blended classes. I had one teacher say, actually more than one teacher say, that they like the opportunity to give the students personal attention, which sounds strange because you might think, oh, I don't see them every day, so I don't have a personal relationship with them. But what's nice is you're talking to them frequently online. And so they feel, the kids feel like they can really connect with the teacher and that they can get feedback from the teacher wherever they are, the student. So they like that. And a lot of the teachers during the blended periods are going to the library where the kids are and actually working with them one-on-one. And so both the teachers and the students love that. I think I already mentioned about the online discussions. I have quite a few teachers saying that they have students working ahead. I have had quite a few teachers say that there's fewer behavioral issues, and that's mostly because they're not there all the time. So the students know when, I only see you twice in a cycle, we got to come in and really work. So there seems to be fewer behavior issues. And I've had quite a few teachers say that all those students that leave to go to sporting events, 7th and 8th period, they don't get as far behind because they can do all their work online. And a lot of really interesting things that teachers are doing to differentiate and individualize their instruction when the students are blended, which I think is great. All right, and just the last thing I want to tell you about is the professional development that the teachers are doing. So cohort 1, so they're the ones that are currently teaching blended classes right now. They are still in professional development with me this year. They are learning more things about Schoology, because Schoology is coming out with updates all the time. Learning new technology tools and still writing and modifying their courses. And then those 45 teachers that have just started with me, they just finished a 4-week-long online course that I developed in Schoology, which I got really great feedback on. We talked about blended learning. We talked about the pedagogy of teaching online. They also got to use tools that maybe they could use in their own classrooms, so they really like that. We're going to spend the rest of the year training in Schoology and learning technology tools they can bring to their classroom, and of course, writing and designing their courses for next year.
Christy, while we're on this, I remember the conversation, we're doing something a little different with, is it Tri-Brand next year, too, or no?
Maybe.
Oh, we're not?
Well, so the teacher volunteered to do driver's ed cyber, but there are some state regulations about that, so we just have to make sure that the course satisfies all those regulations. It will definitely be blended. We're going to try to do it cyber.
Okay.
As long as it follows all the the state came out with all these rules about an online driver's ed course.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So we just have to make sure we're following all of those rules.
I had no idea.
Hey, thank you, Christy. Okay, next item on our agenda, I basically am going to give everybody the overview of the curriculum leader equipment reports. If we could just, can you show us the combined agenda so that folks can just see the 4 links to the different reports, and then if you could just pull up FCS, and I'll speak to FCS in my comments. You know where you can see the tabs along the side on the combined agenda? Okay, so on the left sidebar there you see we have art, health and PE. Click on Health and PE, which scrolls for a number of pages, and then Music, which scrolls for many pages, and then FCS. So the curriculum leaders of these encore areas were charged with taking an inventory of equipment in their departments And the purpose of this accounting of equipment was twofold. First of all, we pay attention to textbooks and online resources, but sometimes we pay less attention to other types of equipment that is used in courses. So we want to make sure that we're providing students with up-to-date, working educational resources. We also want to make sure that we're ensuring responsible budgeting practices. And that is very important. If you click on FCS, please. If you notice that there is equipment used in FCS that you might not think about in a family consumer science course, but which we do need to pay attention to. Refrigerators, washing machines, sewing machines, freezers. We need to make sure that we know the age of that equipment, what the life expectancy is, so that we don't have 5 refrigerators all going down at the same time in each of the schools where they're housed. So we are going to get together as an admin team and take a look at this set of resources and determine what a financially responsible budgeting plan will be. I just want to thank the curriculum leaders for putting together this information, because this will help us move forward in a more responsible, fiscally responsible way to replace that equipment when it's needed. Mrs. Simonelli.
I think this is a great idea. I'm curious about if there were criteria attached to how you define fair and good, and how you define what the condition of the equipment was.
So I'll let Mrs. Nicely speak to that, but my guess is that that was a subjective opinion based on the person who was eyeballing the equipment, I guess, and based on the age. I'm not sure. Mrs. Nicely, would you like to respond to that?
I can respond somewhat to that. Yes, it was somewhat subjective, however, not completely. It was based on how many times we've already had it repaired. So if we had it repaired several times, or if there was, and we know that there are no parts available anymore, which with all of our stoves in the 2 high schools, you cannot get replacement parts. And we've been told that, don't even call us, we're going to declare it dead, and because we cannot replace it. So in that case, we went with fair, and maybe not so good.
Maybe there should have been some category called limping along.
Limping along. And in some cases we are. But most of the equipment is original, so, yeah.
So that's a good question. I think Dr. Mussolini and the finance department and Dr. McNeil are going to take a look at all of these areas and setting up a master plan, and possibly with the finance department, a different way to budget some of these items. So having said that, if I were to take all this information and look at a budget plan, a lot of this is still not clear to me. So,
Like the other capital plans that the board has put together, it needs to have some kind of life cycle planning that we're saying, okay, we're at least evaluate this after so many years and say, do we need to plan to buy another one in X number of years? You know.
right. So, like, not to pick on anybody in particular, I'm looking at health and PE. I've got 6 schools listed, and the other 6 or 7 don't have anything beside them, so I don't know what that means. Some of them don't have a condition. I see year purchase, but I don't see like the year that you think that you might need to replace it based on life expectancy. When you say poor, is it really poor? It has to be replaced. Yeah.
Well, same thing. It's very subjective on what that person thought. The schools had nothing next to it. Where emails were sent out, called to all the teachers there multiple times. So, never reply.
So maybe if there's some way, like, to do an inventory, I mean, at all the schools, like, not just in your area, but in everybody's area, an inventory, like every school has a ping pong table.
Okay, so you want me to, like, so if I go to STEM Academy and look at like all their cardiovascular equipment and do an inventory of it?
Well, I'm not sure if that's the direction we're gonna go, but we probably need to, correct?
Yeah, I'm just thinking before we would actually replace something, maybe leave the curriculum leader as the single eye. So if teachers gave you these reports, Eric, maybe before we finalize this, you would go to Downtown East and say, yes, I agree, this is poor. Well, you know what, this is average, I would say it's poor. But you-
We're gonna come up with language, kind of states what's poor, what's, I mean, the language.
A rubric.
There we go.
We'll develop a rubric, yes. This is for Tony.
Well, I just think, be aware, we're looking at, in my mind, we need to have a budget available for when it needs to be replaced, because just because something's 17 years old, which is a credit to our staff, it's still functioning fine. So I'm not gonna say, let's go buy it, because it's now 17 years old. So I think it's more for the board to have a ballpark figure that we need to set aside so many thousands of dollars a year as replacement is needed on the budget. So it's not a, oh no, how are we gonna find money with it? Because the buildings don't always have it in the budget.
Right, and Mrs. Hurd Simmons made the comment, yes, maybe we have a budget, we're budgeting for that piece of equipment in case it would go.
Right.
But if it doesn't go, it rolls into the next year's budget.
Right.
It's like a 3-year plan.
Mrs. Domino.
Part of my concern, and I apologize because the one up there is missing a few pages, or it's a little bit longer, the art one, but we have on their equipment, now my kilns, we have somebody who comes out and does inspections because I'm not qualified to do that. But we have other machinery that I wouldn't know the first thing if it's good, bad, or I have to rely on what the teachers say unless we have somebody who comes out. We have a lot of wheels and jewelry equipment that, while I can tell you it looks okay, I wouldn't know the first thing about it.
Well, I think the notion is that if you have 5 different people looking, you get a different lens than if it's a single evaluator. So regardless of who the evaluator is, whether it's you or one high school art teacher who has a lens, some one person needs to do this. Okay, so we will update folks as we move forward with this budget plan. Thank you. So, Mrs. Burnham, are you able to give the SPP report in 11 minutes?
We're killing time right now.
Wednesday night. And while Kelly is getting ready, the school performance profile media report, media kit that is on the agenda, all that is a set of documents for districts to use to communicate information to the internal community and the external community about the school performance profile. So on the sheet that is part of the combined agenda, there is a link that will take you to the Pennsylvania Department of Education website where you can see each of the separate documents that are available to districts.
All right, as Dr. Neal said, a school performance profile has been officially released at this point after months of waiting for the public release. Remember, this is the school's new measure of accountability. It started last year. Schools receive a score based on 100 points. It's really not a 100-point scale. If that 100 points is a percentage of so many points. And from that, then there is a possibility for extra credits. Districts do not receive this reporting, and as of yesterday, districts are to receive the required federal reporting measurements, but they have not been loaded yet. They are not on the site they're supposed to be yet. They were supposed to have been loaded a while ago, but they're not there yet. So we have not seen any district reporting out there. First thing is academic achievement, and yes, achievement is important. It makes up about 40% of schools' SPP scores. The math, reading, writing, and science come from the PSSA in K through 5. 6 through 8 is also PSSA, and 9 through 12 would be the Keystone, and also any student who takes the PASS in those 4 as well. The industrial standards-based competency assessment is for students who go to a career and technical education program. Most of those students take a NOCTI test, and if they are competent or advanced, we receive a percentage for that. Grade 3 reading comes from the PSSA or PASA, and grade 3 reading is seen as an indicator or predictor of future academic success. It has basically been called the make or break benchmark in a child's educational development. And Downingtown's average score for grade 3 reading this year was about 89.6% of the kids in 3rd grade were advanced or proficient in reading. The SAT and ACT are our college-ready benchmarks at the high school level, and that's basically the percent of 12th graders who scored 1550 or higher on the SAT or 22 or higher on the ACT at any time that they took those tests while they were in school.
I'd just like to point out, Mrs. Byrne, that for the elementary people, if you pay attention, grade 3 reading counts twice.
Yes.
Once under the PSSA, proficient or advanced, and then second. Well, it's important that children are reading on grade level by grade 3, just making the point.
The next thing deals with the achievement gap. Districts were supposed to be scored and given points based on the achievement gap for this year for all students. And this is closing the achievement gap in the PSSA, the PASA, or the Keystone exams. It did not count at all in 2012, 2013. That was to be the base year, and everything would count this year. However, this year it did not count in math, reading, and writing again, basically because math, if you remember from my presentation last month, math and reading were not supposed to have changed for the PSSA in 2014. However, they did. And because of that, there were significant changes, and the state on the whole showed a decrease in scores in math and reading. And they decided with the new test coming this year, they were going to use this year's test as the baseline score, and not any prior year or this past year. So we will not see closing the achievement gap for math and reading next year either. Science they left go because the science test did not change. And writing, they basically pulled because the statisticians couldn't get the statistics to work out, the correlations to work out, and figured it was the last year of the writing test anyhow, because there is no more writing test, because now everything is ELA, English Language Arts, and so they pulled the writing as well. But starting in 2015-16, we should then see closing of the achievement gap. And that's for all students. The same is true of our historically underperforming students. We were supposed to have closed the achievement gap and seen results for that as well at this point. The students who make up historically underperforming are our IEP students, our ELL students, and our economically disadvantaged students. So here again, those students, they pop up a couple places. They pop up for our performance, they pop up for are we closing the achievement gap, they pop up on PVOS, and they pop up on closing the achievement gap for all students and for historically underperforming. So we see that group of students results in at least 4 different places, and we see how those kids did at that point. The next is based on PVOS. PVOS, which is growth, makes up 40% of schools' STP scores as well. This is based on meeting the annual academic growth expectations based on how those students were projected to perform based on their prior testing history, not on how the group in front of them did, but how they actually did before. Did these students perform as well as they were expected, which means they maintained, they were basically stayed at status quo? Did they perform better than they were expected, so they outperformed the projections, or did they not meet expectations and they basically underperformed? And just remember, this is a true growth because this is comparing the same students to the same students. So here we are comparing apples to apples, not apples to oranges. So it's based on how these students were to do, based on their growth. And there you can see how the growth measures work. 9th to 12th grade does not have writing because of the Lit Keystone, and the Lit Keystone is counted towards literature. Other academic indicators, they make up about 10% of schools' SPP scores. Some of these are specific to grade levels. So cohort graduation rate, obviously the high school is dealing with the graduate students. So they get a percentage of the students in the school who graduate in 4 years with their regular high school diploma. So a student enters 9th grade, in 4 years that student leaves with a regular high school diploma, not a diploma, but based on IEPs or goals or something like that. that those students are counted as percentage. If they don't graduate in 4 years for some reason, or they don't graduate with a regular high school diploma, those are held against the building statistics. And that statistic is based on 1 year prior. So the data for 2014 is actually the class of 2013. Because we're allowed to show up through August of that year, kids who graduate can count in that graduating class, and we'd be really far behind with our statistics to do that. Promotion rate is for the elementary and the middle school level. And basically it has to do with students who are promoted or retained. This percentage did not count last year because there was a mix-up or some kind of error in the state upload from the district's student information system. So this is the first year promotion rate has been included. Again, it's a year late. Our attendance rates are for all 3 levels. Again, it's a year late. And then we have APIB or college credit. And our schools do very well in that because we offer all of those things. And we offer them in every subject. You get 25 points per core subject, and all of our high schools offer at least the 4 that they need. The PSAT and the plan participation is the percent of students who took the PSAT or the plan at any time during their educational experience. Our high schools, everybody takes the PSAT at this point, so that gives us 100%. We don't have so many students taking the plan, which is basically the PSAT of the ACT, and as more and more students, which we are seeing in our district as well, take the ACT, we might want to look at more students being involved in taking the plan as well. And that's a national trend as well, more kids taking the ACT. So at that point, they take all the points, they figure out how many points you earn, how many points were possible for your division, and they give you a percentage. And at that point, you have out of 100%, and then you get your extra credit points. And then basically, extra credit points are based on the PSSA and the Keystone, and also PASA. It's also based on the NACI for those students who go and take courses at technical schools. And it's also based on the percent of students with a 3 or higher, that would be seniors on any AP exam. So elementary and middle schools can earn up to 4 points extra credit. And the high schools with NACI results can learn up to 6 points. And those that don't have any kids who attend any technical schools can only earn up to 5 points. Just to clarify here the importance of achievement and growth, at the elementary level, achievement and growth are equal to each other. In the middle school, they're equal to each other. At the high school level, the value of achievement is slightly greater, not much more, than the value of growth. If you have NACI scores, if you don't, the value of achievement is less than the value of growth. And we got to remember that some students are high performing, but some are not growing. And in some regards, that did hurt us in some areas. We had a lot of kids who were advanced, but they dropped from advanced high to advanced low or something like that. And that became a problem with PBOS then. So how did we do? There's our elementary schools in alphabetical order. Our scores range from 78.4 up to 97.0. We saw some ups, we saw some downs, we saw 1 or 2 that stayed statistically the same as they were. Pretty much that's the trend. When you look at other districts as well, some districts, all of theirs did decline though, and others are very much in line with what ours did. When you look at that, some of the decreases were caused by, or look to be caused by, the percentages of advanced and proficient in math, reading, science, and writing results. And in grade 3, reading, unfortunately, the results decreased, which caused lower scores for some of our elementary schools. We also then saw a decrease in PBOS or growth in those subjects. Again, we appear to have high achievement. We got 90-some%, but our PBOS wasn't as good, and it caused the problem with the PBOS. Some schools saw the opposite. They saw an increase in their grade 3 reading and math and proficient. They saw an increase in their advanced and proficient in all 4 tests, and then therefore they saw an increase in their PBOS in all subjects. Again, it just really all depends on the building and going item by item to see how they did. The middle schools, stayed up above the 90 mark. Downingtown Middle was at 90.9, and Lionville Middle climbed up to 94.9. Some of the losses we saw at the middle school were math achievement and growth. Some of the gains we saw were in reading, science, and writing achievement, and extra credit for advanced achievement in all subjects. So that the extra credit helped the middle schools a little bit, because even though our results went down a little bit in math, for some of them was the highest percentage of advanced they've seen. They must have lost a little bit of proficient, but it helped them in extra credit. And both groups did show that they were closing the achievement gap for science for all students, as well as the historical underperforming. At the high school level, all 3 high schools improved their scores. STEM is up at 101.1. It continues to be number 1 in the state, so it's a little hard with growth there. STEM was the number 1 school in the state of any division. So there was no school in the state of Pennsylvania with a higher score. Downingtown increased due to increased results in algebra, lit, and bio in the NACI this year. It had growth, and its PBOS was very good. West increased due to increased results in biology, and the PBOS growth in Algebra 1 this year was very good. And STEM maintained with an increase in bio achievement and a slight decrease in lit growth. So how do we do compared to the rest of the state? Like I said, Downingtown, the STEM Academy was in first place, was in the top 1%, and that just tells you each of the schools and how it ranked out of 2,944 schools in the state of Pennsylvania. And all of our schools ended up being in the top 50% across the state. Many of our schools, a little more than half, actually were in the top 10%, and then there were 2 in the top 15%, and at least 75% of them were in the top quarter for the state, which is very good. What I did, though, is when we received these scores, we get a massive spreadsheet with every school in the state, regardless of what kind of school it is, and it's not broken up. They have elementary with middle school with high school. They have all kinds of configurations. They have the magnet schools and with the charter schools and with the public schools. Everybody's thrown into one. And obviously, if you would like them broken down by division, you can do that, but then your district has to do that. It was a little time consuming, so that did take some time to break them into their divisions. It becomes an issue as well because the way our grade configuration is, K through 5, 6 through 8, and 9 through 12, is not how every school district across the state of Pennsylvania does it. So I had to go through and say, okay, this school isn't our exact configuration, but it best matches this configuration, and try to put each school into some configuration based on its configuration compared to ours. So some of these are not 100% matched. I did the best I could getting them into something that is at least as similar as possible. So if you look at our elementary division, Springton Manor was the 20th highest elementary school in the state. Brandywine Wallace was 76th, and so on. Looking at the top percentages, Springton Manor ranked in the top 2% across the state, Brandywine Wallace in the top 5% across the state, and so on. The middle schools, out of 913 middle schools, Lionville Middle ranked 17th, Downingtown Middle ranked 52nd. Out of 681 high schools, or as close as I could get them, STEM ranked 1st, Downingtown East ranked 21st, and West ranked 44th. And all of our secondary schools were the top 10% for their divisions across the state. This is Chester County, all the elementary schools. Springton Manor within the county was in 2nd, Brandywine Wallace was 10th, and so on and so on. And there are 58 elementary schools in Chester County. Our middle school and high school, if you take a look at the middle schools in Chester County, there are 17 middle schools in Chester County. However, Owen J. Roberts Middle School SPP has not been released at this point, and the politically correct answer is they need to investigate their results further. The Owen J. Roberts Middle School's results have not been released at this point.
Kelly, go back to the other slide. So, you know, obviously, we're not as excited about some of the results of our elementary schools, but we really think that, and we really believe last year the implementation of maybe the new math program, it brought us down in a lot of places. We're really anticipating everybody moving to that left side next year, and we're dead serious about that. Everybody back up to where they were. There were some drastic falls. Go to the next slide. You look at our secondary schools without the major implementation that we had. Everybody here is in the top of Chester County. Everybody. And you see that our secondary schools, our 3 high schools, top 5%. And Downingtown Middle School, it just fell a little bit. All of our secondary schools in the top 10%. So we're really focused on our elementary program and getting a look at that math data and maintaining our secondary programs where they should be. Just for the record, Westchester Schools, Westchester School District, our size, very much like us, every school above 90% last year. I thought they did really well. Every school above 90%. Pretty cool. And that's where we want to be. That's where we believe we can be. So we're really taking a look at this and focusing really hard. Good stuff going on. Really good stuff. Thanks, Kelly.
That's it.
Good deal.
Thank you, Kelly. We have one brief announcement from Mrs. Yenser in the technology department.
Since there's a lot of time left for our meeting today, I'm going to take my 6 things and go down to 1, just because it's a little bit of good news. Gavin, hot off the presses, or I should say hot off the truck. The Project Lead the Way and CAD computers are starting to arrive. 48 arrived several hours ago. The remainder are arriving tomorrow, so we're going to get them built and imaged and out to you ASAP. The firewall also arrived today. SAN was shipped today from California. We hope to have it here within the week. I'll leave it at that. Have a good day.
Thank you, everyone. Meeting is adjourned.
I don't have anything to do with current update. I'm waiting for the program. I can get
And I had my 7.
Yeah, like time. And then the next week, and then the next week is the London. Yeah, because I'm
You too, Simone.
Thank you.
All right.
Science teacher and technology teacher. I'm also a Toastmaster too, so.
Collaborative, you're supposed to know when yourself, now you don't ask them what the police are. Oh, no, you're responsible for the police are. You gotta get them involved. And it was just learning.
It's a learning curve. You see
Not too bad because I love it. And every time I wear it, I get so many compliments.
Wait, what was that? Oh, okay, No, yes. I can't even just as busy here. I can't. I said, I can't believe I'm standing here. Tuesday, Monday morning. What? Take care. I'm having an additional market that I'm hopefully resolving it tonight.
I feel better because he doesn't respond to my. Oh, he's not here, he's up.
So there's another guy in the building who had said something like, hey, so I'm gonna ask you tonight to see him. Because I got it. Well, I'm just gonna tell you that. Like I sent him, you sent me an email. Maybe you're like, I'm sorry, I do. I sent it out right now. I go, here's what I want to do. Here's my ideas. Here's the thing. Here's what we can make. What do you have? You're gonna be late. What are we doing? I'm sorry, I can't. All the weekend, I'm like, no. Right? So what do you think? You know, I sent you guys. You know what I mean? Are you still building? What are you doing? Like, not like, oh, and you pick up, I guess, he just doesn't. None of that. So we also tonight. I'm not going to take it away from them. hopefully this got a response, right? Like hopefully the new guy, he's a I won't. We don't need this Christmas. She was like, right, she was very good. And